Hello and welcome to Gladys Cake Kitchen. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I made this ganache marble drip cake decorated with flowers and a cascade of Ferrero Rochers. While this cake stands pretty for you to see, it actually started as a mess thanks to some very costly mistakes I made when filling this cake. Thankfully, I was able to fix my mistakes, thereby turning the cake around. I'm going to take you through the entire process, showing you what I did wrong and how I fixed them. Hopefully, you will learn from my mistakes and pick yourself some tips to help you avoid the same kind of disaster during your cake decorating process. Fixing this cake wasn't exactly fun for me, but I'm excited to show you all about it. So let's jump right in. I am starting with layers of blue velvet cake, which I've sprinkled with some simple sugar syrup for moisture. The cakes are assembled for filling with buttercream and jam, and that's where the first mistake began. I am using French buttercream made with whole eggs, but this batch wasn't exactly stable. And notice from the first layer the buttercream is too soft. Having made it in advance and left it in the fridge to chill, I accidentally melted the buttercream in my attempt to bring it from solid state to spreadable consistency. I should have left the buttercream to set first after melting and remixing, but in a hurry I decided to fill the cake, and this turned out to be my costliest mistake through the process. With that in mind, the best tip for cake decorating is to follow the rules and obey the process. Don't cut corners and leave yourself enough time to decorate your cake, especially if you're a beginner. A few layers in, the cake is shifting and looking unsteady thanks to the buttercream. I should have perhaps left the cake after 2 layers to set up firm before adding more, but I was determined to get through quickly, thereby ignoring my own instincts and guidelines for filling a cake. By the 5th layer, the cake layers were uneven, and an attempt to scrape any excess buttercream nearly left the cake falling apart. So I stopped and finally decided to let the cake chill before anything else. As you observe, I could barely get around my work desk and the cake eventually fell apart. To fix the cake, I separated the top 3 layers, creating 2 separate cakes to be tackled one at a time. The bottom 2 layers are scraped clean using an offset spatula dipped in hot water. The layers are shifted back into shape and any excess buttercream scraped off. This is then left to chill in the fridge for up to half an hour. Next, the top 3 layers also saw a makeover like the 2 layers earlier. For more on how to fill a cake properly and not be like me, I have a beginner's basics series where I show you how to prep and layer your cakes, as well as fill and crumb coat a cake in 2 ways. These videos are linked in the description box for you, so please do check them out. Having prepped the layers, even though still uneven, it was left to chill before the next step. After chilling the cake for an hour, the cakes are set solid and brought back to be set straight. The first 2 layers are filled with excess buttercream scraped together earlier because I realized too late I didn't have enough buttercream left and had no time to make a new batch. A dam is created in the center of the cake for the jam filling, and the cake is set aside. The top 3 layers are then evened out and brought back to be set on the bottom layers. Our cake is now fixed into shape and a dowel inserted to hold the layers together with a part sticking out. This will come in handy when trimming the cake. Our cake is set and ready to be trimmed. A sharp warm knife is used to carefully trim the crust of the cake, thereby cleaning the cake off the messy buttercream and creating an even surface for crumb coating and polishing later. I love to trim my cakes for reasons I have listed in several videos linked below for you. But even if you're not keen on trimming your cakes, this is one of the crucial locations where trimming is a must. With trimming done, the dowel is removed and the cake is left to set before it is returned for crumb coating. Our cake returns to be crumb coated with a layer of ganache spread to set the crumbs before any other layers are added. Crumb coating is an important step recommended in cake decorating, but there is a recent video link below where I skipped crumb coating entirely for reasons I explained for you in the video. Please do check that out. During this crumb coat, a light layer of ganache is applied and any excess removed. Our crumb coat is done and the cake is left to chill for 15 minutes before the next layers are applied. Next, the cake is back after chilling to be cleaned on top. after which ganache is applied in layers of light pink and off-white for a subtle marble effect. To achieve this, blobs of pink ganache is applied around the cake in a row starting from the bottom, while maintaining the pink as the cake's main color. 2 or 3 blobs of off-white ganache is added through the process. The pattern is repeated until the cake is completely covered. Whilst the cake is noticeably pink with streaks of white running through, blobs of white ganache is spread over some parts of the pink areas and blended together by smudging with an offset spatula. Any excess ganache is scraped with a clean scraper held at a 45-degree angle. When the subtle marble effect is done, any pocket holes on the cake is filled. The ganache gathered on the top leaf is left to chill and returned to be cleaned to reveal a polished, straight standing cake with a subtle pink and white marble effect. Our cake is done and ready to be decorated. Before decoration, let me show you how I wrapped this cake board with ribbon before the cake was transferred onto the board. If you've seen any of my videos before, you'll notice this is how I prefer to display my finished cakes, which gives any cake a professional presentation. First, I spread some glue around the board using a glue stick and a ribbon cut to the diameter of the board with a slight overlap. A sewing pin is then used to secure the ribbon, pinning it through the overlap into the board, and that's the board complete. With the board done, a dollop of ganache is spread on it as glue and the cake is transferred to sit perfectly for display. A good tip is to mark the board surface showing the exact placement of the cake before transfer. The cake is presented and shifted slightly into place, but there's a small gap between the board and the cake which is filled with ganache and scraped for a clean, sealed look. Our cake is done, and far from the mess it was, we have a polished cake ready for a drip effect. To make the drip, the cake is left in the fridge for another 30 minutes until it is completely cold and solid on the outside before the drip is applied. Recipe details and method for the drip is created in a shorts video for you, but I have some details on screen for your convenience. The drip is applied with a spoon for my preferred result, and when complete, the cake is chilled again to set the drip before final decorations are added. Our cake is now done and ready for some flowers to be inserted into a fondant ball which serves as a barrier. The reason I do this is explained in several videos, with the most recent one linked up here for your convenience. A cascade of Ferrero Rochers are added with edible gold leaf applied in spot for additional decorations. The green leaves are painted with edible paint to complete the look. But here are a few fun facts about this cake. This particular design is one of my most popularly requested designs by purchasing customers on my website. I also created this particular tutorial 3 years ago when I began YouTube, but perhaps consider this an update. With such a transformed cake from a mess to a polished, straight standing cake, I hope you've learned some new tips and tricks to help you level up your decorating skills. The video on screen will show you how I fixed the cake that wasn't filled correctly, resulting in a jam leak. The transformation is worth watching, so do check that video out. I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.